The college football regular season has come and gone. That means only one thing. It's award season now. You see, award season is that magical time period between the last weekend of college football, that being conference championship weekend, and the beginning of bowl game season. So today we are going to be going through some of the most notable season awards and handing them out based off of my opinions of all of the players. So with the intro out of the way, I'd like to say hello and welcome to the JSA studio. I'm your host, as always, Nathan, and today we are going to be handing out awards for the 2023-2024 college football season. Starting off with the Davy O'Brien / Manning Award. Basically, this is just the best quarterback award. My three nominees for this award are likely to also be the finalists for the actual Davy O'Brien or Manning Awards, and that is quarterback Bo Nix from Oregon, Jaden Daniels from LSU, and Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. Bo Nix led his team to an 11-2 regular season record and a New Year's Six bowl game berth, which they will almost certainly win as they are playing Liberty. Jaden Daniels, even though his team ended up 9-3, put on an absolutely historic season, throwing for almost 4,000 yards and rushing for 1,100 while having almost 50 total touchdowns. And Michael Penix Jr. has led his team to a 13-0 perfect record, a berth in the college football playoffs, and a Pac-12 championship. These are three very good players who all have a chance to go in the first round of this upcoming draft, and who I believe all have decent shots at being very successful NFL football players. But who do I think is the most deserving and best quarterback in the country? And unlike the College Football Playoff Committee, I know what those words mean. So I am giving the award to Jaden Daniels. As I said previously, he's had an absolutely historic season. He has 3,812 passing yards with 40 passing touchdowns to only 4 interceptions. That is a 10-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He has a 95.7 QBR. For those unaware, QBR is on a scale from 1 to 100. So having damn near 100 is absolutely insane. And to add up all of that as well, he has 135 carries for 1,134 yards, which is 8.4 yards per carry, which is also clinically insane. And adding on top of his 40 passing touchdowns, he has 10 rushing touchdowns to bring his total to 50 total touchdowns in 12 games. He did not have the benefit of a conference championship game. The next award we're going to be covering here is the Doak Walker Award, which is handed out yearly to the best running back in college football. My personal nominees for this award are Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State, Travion Henderson from Ohio State, and Bucky Irving from Oregon. Ollie Gordon, the Oklahoma State running back, was the engine that allowed the offense to tick and led them all the way to the Big 12 title game. Now, they got boat raced by Texas, but that doesn't particularly matter. Travion Henderson for Ohio State has been the best running back in football this year, and had he played the entire season, he would have ran away with this award in my eyes. Bucky Irving may be small, but he is astonishingly explosive and tremendous at making people miss and getting big plays. And without further ado, my winner for this award is Ollie Gordon, the Oklahoma State running back. Despite having a slow first 3 games where he didn't particularly get to touch the ball a whole lot, he still ended the season with 258 carries for 1,614 yards for an incredible 6.8 yards per carry and 20 rushing touchdowns. Ollie Gordon was tremendous this year, and the best part was I don't particularly believe he had an elite offensive line. His offensive line, I think, was okay. I don't particularly think it was all that good. And to put up numbers like this behind a mediocre offensive line just goes to show how good Ollie Gordon is. Up next is the Biletnikoff Award, handed out annually to the best wide receiver in college football. And even though there could be well more than 3 nominees for this award, it just so happens that my top 3 wide receivers in college football this year also line up with what the actual Biletnikoff Award thinks is the top 3 wide receivers. On the left, we have Malik Nabers, a future first-round pick from LSU, who had 1,500 receiving yards and just looked absolutely dominant on the field this year. In the middle, we have Marvin Harrison Jr., who is perhaps the best player, not just wide receiver, in all of college football. And on the right, we have Rome Odunze, the best player in the Pac-12 this past year. This was a difficult decision to make because when you look at the stats, Nabers and Odunze are clearly ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. when you look at cumulative stats, that is. If you look at per catch stats, because Marvin Harrison Jr. has about 20 less catches than Malik Nabers, then these 3 wide receivers become incredibly close. And ultimately, I'm going to give this to the wide receiver that I think is most deserving, even though I don't think they are the best wide receiver. I think that's Marvin Harrison Jr. However, I am going to give the Biletnikoff Award to Malik Nabers out of LSU. He had 86 catches for 1,546 yards with a nearly 18 yards per catch, which is an extraordinary number, and 14 receiving touchdowns. Malik Nabers has been elite from the first snap he played this year to the last snap he played this year. He is maybe the best route runner in all of college football, to go along with elite explosiveness and fantastic ability after the catch with the ball in his hands. Up next, we have the Mackey Award, named after John Mackey, a tight end for the Indianapolis Colts in the 60s and early 70s. Who later joined the Hall of Fame. This award is handed out annually to the best tight end in college football. Our 3 nominees are Brock Bowers of Georgia, of course, Brock Bowers of Georgia, and Brock Bowers of Georgia. Now, it may be surprising who I have winning this award, given the 3 high-quality tight ends I have put on the screen here, but we're actually doing a little bit of a thing called a bait and switch, where we're going off the board here for who I'm giving this award to. I'm giving it to Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia. In all seriousness, Brock Bowers is the best tight end in college football. He might be the best tight end in the history of college football. He's likely going to be a top 10 pick and will probably be able to put up Pro Bowl caliber numbers in the NFL next year. This award was probably the easiest, or at least one of the easiest awards for me to give out. I don't particularly think there is any real argument for anybody other than Brock Bowers to be the best tight end in college football. I understand that he missed a few games and wasn't 100% for the SEC championship game, so he didn't particularly contribute, but he is still clearly the best tight end in football. Up next, we have the Rimmington Award, handed out annually to the best center in all of college football. Going from left to right, we have Drake Nugent from Michigan, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, and Cedric Van Pran from Georgia. All 3 of these centers were anchors on some of the best offensive lines in college football. And unlike in previous years, I think this is a pretty solid group, and you could really make an argument to give it to any one of these guys. However, I do think there is one player that has separated from the pack here, and that is Cedric Van Pran from Georgia. He has been extraordinarily consistent throughout his entire college career. I think he's likely going to be a day 2 pick in this upcoming draft class and probably a day 1 starter in the NFL. He's fantastic in pass pro and moves with a capital M people in the run game. The boy gets his job done like nobody else in college football this year. The Outland Award is the next award here. This is given out annually to the best interior linemen on either side of the ball. So my nominees for this are one of each of the 3 possible interior positions. Now, the real-life Outland Trophy has a little bit of a problem where they tend to nominate players who are not interior linemen. So, in case somebody manages to see this, I'm going to remind them what the 3 interior line positions are, representing the 3 technique, or commonly referred to as a defensive tackle. I have Jerzon or Johnny Newton from Illinois. Representing the 1 or 0 technique, often referred to as the nose tackle or nose guard, I have T'Vondre Sweat out of Texas. And representing the interior offensive line, the center/guard position, I have Cedric Van Pran from Georgia. This was a tough decision, not only between the 3 players on the screen, but also to find the players, or the correct players in my opinion, that I believe to represent each of these 3 interior positions. Nevertheless, I somehow managed to pick some players here, and I also managed to pick who I think deserves to win the award, and that is Jerzon or Johnny Newton. Newton has been absolutely outstanding the past 2 seasons. I believe he is likely going to be a top 20 pick in this upcoming draft class, despite being a tad bit undersized. He's extraordinarily quick and has the requisite strength to be able to survive at the next level. He finished this season with 26 total tackles, 8.5 tackles for a loss, 7.5 sacks, and 44 total pressures. These are incredible numbers for a defensive tackle to have. He's extraordinarily disruptive, and even though he's not as dominant straight up as T'Vondre Sweat is, he plays more snaps and has more of an impact on both aspects of the game. Whereas T'Vondre Sweat doesn't particularly affect the pass game at all, even though he is extraordinary at stopping the run. Up next is the Butkus Award, handed out to the best butt kisser. Wait, no, that's not right. Handed out to the best linebacker annually in all of college football. The award is, of course, named for legendary Bears linebacker Dick Butkus, which is an extraordinary name when you break it down into syllables. But enough of that, let's instead talk about the nominees. From left to right, as usual, I have Mike Barrett from Michigan, Abdul Carter from Penn State, and Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M. And I think all 3 of these linebackers, even though Abdul Carter does kind of get a little bit of national hype, have been extraordinarily underrated. And I would also like to give a quick shout out and an honorable mention to Jalen Walker from James Madison, who had an extraordinary year and was very hard to leave off this list. However, I decided for the individual position awards that I was only going to do 3 nominees. So, who do I think is the best linebacker in football? Well, I think there is a pretty clear answer here, and that's Edgerrin Cooper, who this year had 83 tackles, 8 sacks on 27 pressures, and an extraordinary coverage grade backed up by the film of 90.8 from Pro Football Focus. Now, if you want to come at me for the Pro Football Focus thing, that's fine. You're entitled to have your opinion. However, I do think Pro Football Focus is generally speaking correct. I do think there are specific instances where they perhaps are a bit biased towards certain things. However, I don't think that is the case for this, because Edgerrin Cooper has been unbelievable this year. He's extraordinary when blitzing, he's fantastic in coverage, and he can straight up and flat out play linebacker like the best of them. The only real question I have about him is his overall general athleticism, so the scouting combine will be important for him and his NFL prospects in this upcoming draft. The final of the traditional sort of position awards that I'm going to be giving out is the Jim Thrope Award, which is named after perhaps the greatest athlete of all time in Jim Thorpe, who, in addition to playing 3 sports professionally simultaneously, also won 2 Olympic gold medals. Much like the Outland Award, I am going to give one nominee from each of the 3 positions that make up the defensive back positions. That is, of course, nickelback, safety, and cornerback. The nickelback nominee that I have is undoubtedly the best nickelback in the country, and that's Mike Sandersill from Michigan. I then have what I believe to be the best outside corner in this college football season in Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama in the middle. And finally, we have the best all-around safety in college football this year, Malachi Starks. Now, the real-life Jim Thrope Award, not my version of it, tends to have a serious bias against nickelbacks and in favor of outside corners instead of safeties. However, every now and then, the actual best defensive back, not just cornerback, wins the award. With that being said, I'm giving the award to Malachi Starks from Georgia. The stats don't tell the whole story, but they do tell part of it. He has 51 total tackles this year with 7 pass deflections and 2 interceptions. This year, however, he kind of proved that he could play in the box a bit more and make plays in the run game. Last year, he kind of proved that he was extraordinary in coverage and did not get tested as much this year as he did last year, which is why you see the low amount of interceptions and pass breakups. However, despite the stats not being there, he was undoubtedly, in my opinion, the best defensive back in college football this year. Up next, we have 3 sort of quicker awards before we get into the big national awards. The first one is the Paul Hornung Award, given out annually to the most versatile player in college football, and there is only one person who should get this award, and that is Colorado defensive back / wide receiver Travis Hunter. Had he played the whole year, I think he probably would be in the Heisman conversation. Despite Colorado's 4-8 record, as I do believe when healthy, he is probably the best player in college football, as he has borderline elite coverage skills and is an absolutely outstanding wide receiver. This year, defensively, he had 31 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 7 pass breakups, while on the offensive end, he had 57 catches for 721 yards and 5 touchdowns. The next award is the Broyles Award, given out to the best assistant coach in the country. And I think that this is also a fairly clear and straightforward award to give out, and that is to Sharon Moore, who took over a team going up against a top 10 team with 16 hours notice, won the game, and then proceeded to beat a difficult Maryland team and win another top 10 and top 5 matchup with Ohio State. And it wasn't just the fact that he beat Ohio State, it was how he beat Ohio State. He made several decisions to go for it on 4th down and other coaching decisions that were elite coaching decisions and objectively the correct answer. He outcoached, in my opinion, a top 5 coach in all of football in Ryan Day. Sharon Moore deserves this award. Now, he didn't win it in real life, and the fact that I think he should win it means absolutely nothing. But I am going to give my version of the Broyles Award to Sharon Moore. And the final award that we'll be discussing in this segment is the Joe Moore Award, handed out to the best offensive line as a group in the country. And I do not believe that there is a correct opinion other than to say that Georgia has had the best offensive line in college football this year. This offensive line played with injuries and still played at an elite level. When fully healthy, they were very clearly the best offensive line in the country, and even with their backups, they were still undeniably top 5. Up next is the Defensive Player of the Year Award, also known as the Bronco Nagurski or Chuck Bednarik Awards. For these next few awards, I'm going to have more than 3 nominees because they are big national awards and not just awards for specific positions. So for Defensive Player of the Year, I have 5 nominees: Abdul Carter from Penn State, Malachi Starks from Georgia, Dallas Turner from Alabama, Jerzon or Johnny Newton from Illinois, and Laiatu Latu from UCLA. All 5 of these players have been absolutely fantastic. I think all 5 of them will end up being first round and perhaps even top 20 picks, and they were all instrumental to successful teams at some point in their career, in the case for Jerzon Newton. With all of that out of the way, I'm going to give my Defensive Player of the Year award to Laiatu Latu from UCLA. He has been the best edge rusher in the country this year, as well as a probable top 10 pick in my opinion, and the early leader for my Edge 1 in this upcoming draft class. This year, Laiatu Latu had 49 tackles, 21.5 tackles for a loss, 13 sacks, and 65 pressures in 12 games. These are absolutely ridiculous numbers, and the film backs him up in terms of him being a dominant player. Up next are my candidates for Coach of the Year. My candidates are Jeff Brom from Louisville, Jamie Chadwell from Liberty, Jason Candle from Toledo, Jedd Fisch from Arizona, Elijah Drinkwitz from Missouri, Mike Norvell from Florida State, and Kalen DeBoer from Washington. So what is my rationale for deciding this award? For all the rest of the awards, I think the rationale is pretty self-evident. However, this one, not so much. For me, just because you are a very, very good coach, like, for example, Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, doesn't necessarily mean that you should win the Coach of the Year award. Instead, I give it out usually to the coach that exceeded expectations by the greatest margin. So, for the case of Kalen DeBoer and Mike Norvell, they were both expected to have high-quality football teams that were contending for the playoff this year. So even though I wanted to mention them because they've done fantastic jobs this year, they are not going to be winning this award for me. And as good as Jamie Chadwell and Jason Candle have been, I don't particularly think either of their accomplishments and how they were accomplished warrants the Coach of the Year award. So we're really down to 3 options in my opinion: Jeff Brom from Louisville, Jedd Fisch from Arizona, and Elijah Drinkwitz from Missouri. So I'm really quickly here going to go one by one for them, starting with Jeff Brom at Louisville. I do think that he was a surprising coach this year, and Louisville was a surprising team. Basically, nobody thought that Louisville was going to be in contention for the ACC championship game, let alone make the ACC championship game over the likes of Clemson or UNC, or even some people were saying that North Carolina State would be a sleeper team this year. For Jedd Fisch at Arizona, nobody saw a 9-3 Arizona team that was in contention for the Pac-12 title game during the last week of the season. Nobody saw that coming. And if you say you did, you are lying to me. And the final coach, who I do think is just slightly below the other two, is Elijah Drinkwitz. And that's because there were rumblings about Missouri being a team to watch out for as a potential dark horse SEC contender, where they really only had to upset Georgia in order to make the SEC championship game, and then you never know what can happen from then on. So even though I really like him as a coach and think he has a decent chance to keep Missouri as a relevant program in the SEC, I will not be giving the Coach of the Year award to him. So it really comes down to Jeff Brom or Jedd Fisch. And of those two, the better coaching job, in my opinion, was Jedd Fisch from Arizona. So I will be giving my version of the National Coach of the Year award to him. The final award we will be looking at today is the Heisman Award, or as I like to call it, the Best Offensive Player in the Country Award. And these are the 4 finalists for that award in real life. It just so happens that my opinion also matches up with what the Heisman Committee thinks are the best 4 offensive players in the country. Those being the same 3 quarterbacks from the Davey O'Brien Award, Bo Nix from Oregon, Michael Penix from Washington, and Jaden Daniels from LSU, to go along with Marvin Harrison Jr., who, although he didn't have the numbers to win the Biletnikoff, was probably a better receiver this season than Malik Nabers. Unlike in previous years, I do actually believe that by the standards set out by the Heisman Committee and the legacy of the award, there is actually someone worthy of winning that trophy. And that's Jaden Daniels. He's very clearly been the best player in college football this year. I mean, he put up absolutely extraordinary and unbelievable numbers and has, generally speaking, been the most impactful player in college football. But that's just me, and what do I know? I'm just some asshole on the internet giving you his opinion. It's at this point I'd like to remind you to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you disagreed with me at any point, or if you just have something to say, go ahead and leave a comment down in the comment section below. And with the outro out of the way, there's only one thing left to say, and that's that I'll see you next time.